Welcome back. I'm Emily and this is Breezing Through. Okay, so I have just started on a big project in my daughter's room. I'm adding more cubbies. So if you've been around for a little bit, you might remember that I added shelves and like a play area to her bedroom 3 or 4 years ago now, probably 4. Painted them pink to match her bathroom. It's been great. Well, over the years, she's acquired more stuff. And as I talked about before, she's autistic and she collects things. And she collects especially like toys. So we needed more space to put her stuff. And her room has zero storage, absolutely zero storage. So I needed to come up with a solution. Had a bunch of different ideas. It was actually my mom that came up with this idea of using the entire wall. So wall-to-wall storage, cubbies, and a desk. So I'm working on that. That's not what today's video is about. Got you hyped on that. That's hopefully gonna be next week's video because I'm getting close to being done with that project. However, the thing I want to talk to you about today is the desk and the chair. So I had this vision in my head of making her this custom, beautiful chair and for her desk. So if you remember, not that long ago, I did her mirror with those resin flowers and I made so many flowers and I painted all of them. And I wanted to use some of those flowers on this chair that I was making her. So I went to Joann's and I got some fabric and I let her pick between 2 fabrics and I made this chair. The other thing about this chair is I wanted her to have a chair that she could sit any way she wanted on. So the base is really, really big and the back isn't super tall because she doesn't tend to lean back very much. She tends to lean forward more than anything else. So this chair is custom for her. We'll see how it goes. I did up making a pillow out of the other fabric for her because I just love that fabric and it's super cute. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how I make this chair. It's really not that difficult and we'll talk again at the end. So I started off with this sheet of 2x4 composite and I cut it in half. So I ended up with 2 2x2 pieces and I'm using one of those 2x2 pieces for the base. I went to Joann Fabric to take advantage of those sales because really sad we're losing Joann. Anyway, I got 4 yards of these 2 different kinds of fabric as well as a roll of 1-inch foam. I cut that foam down into 2 2x2 squares and put that on top of my piece of composite wood. I didn't want to buy a whole new thing of batting, so I just used some scraps that I had. Yes, it's not one whole piece, but it still covers the entire 2x2 square, so we're just going to roll with it. I then pulled the batting nice and tight and secured it to the board using my staple gun. I did this all the way around the 2x2 square, making sure that the 2 pieces of batting overlapped and I stapled those together to make sure that there wasn't going to be any gapping and it wouldn't come loose. Now when it came to the fabric, I bought 2 different fabrics for my daughter to choose from, and like I thought she would, she picked the softer, fuzzier pink one. I got 4 yards of, I only used a yard for this entire project, so I have 3 yards left, which is nice because I can use it for something else later. Anyway, I laid the now foam and batting covered square on top of the fabric to see how much that I would need, and I cut it to size, making sure that there was plenty that I could pull over and staple onto the board. I have discovered that when doing upholstery projects like this, it's always better to have excess fabric that you have to trim later than to not have enough, and I've done quite a few upholstery projects at this point. So once I had that cut, I then made sure that the fabric was pulled tight and I started stapling it to the underside of the board on the same side where I stapled the batting. The biggest tip for doing this is just use more staples than you think you need. You don't need a lot of space between each staple. You really want them as close together as possible because that's going to keep the fabric in place for the longest amount of time. And for the corners, I like to fold it kind of like a present and staple the fold first, and then fold the remaining part of the fabric onto the board and staple that as well. You may be wondering why this seat for this chair is so large. I have seen, and I'm sure you've seen as well, all of those like desk chairs where you can sit cross-legged on them, you can sit in different positions, and I think that's a brilliant idea because I have ADHD and I like to sit cross-legged when I sit, and my daughter also has ADHD, and so I thought this would be a really fun, different kind of chair for her. And since I'm making it and the cost isn't very low, it was worth a try. Now for the back of the chair, I did not want another whole 2x2 square for the back. I decided to make it half that width. So this is 1x2. So I took the other 2x2 square that I had from cutting that original board in half and cut that in half. And then I had one piece of foam left and I cut that in half as well. And it was perfect because it then was the same size as the board. I had a little bit of batting left and it was just the right amount to cover this 1x2 board. So I repeated the same thing on the back that I did for the seat where I stapled the batting to the board, followed that up with stapling the fabric to the board. As you can see here, there is a lot of extra fabric, and I did not need that much fabric to secure it to the board, but it's just what I cut, and I obviously cut off the excess when I was done. The one problem is with a seat, you're not going to see the bottom of the upholstered cushion. So you're not going to see the bare board. With the back, you will. And I could have done another smaller upholstered piece and put that along the back and just glued them together, but I decided to do something a little bit different. I took the other half of this 1x2 board, so it's also 1x2, and I painted it pink. This is the same pink that I used on the playhouse that I did for our daughter for our side yard. This was a few years ago, but it was a good pink that was really similar to the pink on the chair. So I just primed the front and the sides, and then once that was dry, I went in with the paint and I did 2 coats of the paint. But I didn't just want this to be a blank piece of painted wood. You may recall when I made the resin flower frame for my daughter's bathroom, I made so many flowers that I didn't end up using. So I actually went in and I used the roses from when I did that, and I painted them different shades of pink, and then I'm going to glue them onto this pink board. Before I glued up the flowers though, I needed to have a way to secure the pink board to the back cushion. And I tried a few different ways of doing this, and I'm actually going to show you the 2 different things that I tried because the first one was not it. So I want to show you so you don't do it. So first I used 1x2s and I painted some of them so that the edges would be pink, the edges that would be seen, and I secured them to the back of the cushion. And the thought process for this was that I would use the pieces that are sticking off the end to then secure those to the bottom cushions of the seat, and the pink board would lay on top. Well, that just was not going to provide enough support because I really needed something that was long on both the back and the bottom of this chair, and that was not what I did here. So I had to remove everything, and I actually found that I had some gold brackets on a shelf that really wasn't being used. I ended up needing the shelf again later, but I used other brackets that I had on hand, and I used those gold brackets instead. I secured the longer part of the bracket to the back of the chair and then the shorter part to the seat, and that's how I got these 2 pieces of the chair to attach to each other. I found these cute legs on Amazon. They're white. They also come, I think, in a wood finish, but they have 2 different brackets that you can attach to whatever you're adding your legs to, and they can either be straight or they can be at an angle. And I decided to do an angle because I felt like that would just look better in general in her room. Once those brackets are attached to the bottom of the chair, all you have to do is screw in the legs, so that was super easy. Now back to the back of the chair. So I have all these painted pink roses, and I have this pink piece of wood, and I'm taking this same construction adhesive that I used for the flower mirror frame, and I am putting it on the backs of these flowers and then doing a little kind of almost like a frame on the edges of this board. I used the same construction adhesive to secure the painted board with the roses on it to the back of the chair, and then left it there overnight to make sure that everything stayed in place and dried nicely, which it did. I then took the chair to my daughter's room, and I'm going to be honest, I was not thrilled with it. I felt like there was something missing. Obviously, it is a handmade custom piece that I made for her, but there was just something off about it. So I decided to use the other fabric that I got at Joann's when I went and got the fabric I used for the chair, just to make a little pillow, just to give her something as like an extra cushion because the seat is so big. Just really fast cut out 2 17 by 17 inch squares out of the fabric. So those together left a little gap at the end on one side of the pillow so I could flip it inside out, stuff it with some extra stuffing I had on hand, and then hand sewed it shut. And I feel like that just adds the little extra thing to this chair. So what do you think? I really struggled with attaching the back of that chair. I'm glad I found those brackets. I did have to take them off of a shelf I was already using them on and switch out a different set for a different set. But here we are. My daughter loves it. She's so in love with it. She spends so much time sitting on that chair now, and her desk is pretty much done. I just need to do all the finish work and get it painted and everything. But let me know what you think. And if you love this video, please leave a comment, subscribe so that you can see more videos like this, and I will see you next time.